Welcome everyone to Channel Gap, the Great Australian Party and our cause to restore our rights lost, in which our efforts are on track to promote the restoration of the Commonwealth here and in London. This may also be an address to the judiciary. As everyone knows, I was one of 12 senators elected from Western Australia, and as a former federal senator, whilst I represented those people from Western Australia under my constitutional duties, I became very concerned with our rights for which address to these issues of law were denied. I have prepared a short message to Australians concerning their heritage that has been, for the intents and purposes, in effect, stolen. Here in this short video, it will be demonstrated that the scheme to mislead and derail the Commonwealth and deny the authority of the people of the several states, the Commonwealth, and it was intended within the consequence of removing the guarantee of our English common law afforded under the Crown by the Queen's Oath. Some of us remember when Her Majesty was known as the Queen of the United Kingdom. The Crown was the standard for our application of laws such as the English common law. This path to denial of our sovereign power and the Crown's protection from tyranny began in 1973 in contravention and violation of the Foundation Law, an act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia. It was the Labor Party initiative that removed the Crown and the Commonwealth from the Federal Parliament and government in practice, where, ordinarily, the grant of executive and legislative power was vested and exists. This act of revolution in changing the form of government was revisited in 1986 by the several Labor governments when they acted collectively and removed the states from our Commonwealth and the Crown by a corrupt application of the Constitution. At the time in 1973, the Whitlam government passed a bill in the Federal Parliament to create a novel title for Queen's adoption. This changed the scheme of the Constitution that did not recognise the people's sovereignty, which rested in the term the Commonwealth. This also changed the body corporate of the Queen, in which an Australian Queen would not be in possession of the Crown and not advised by the Crown ministers, leaving the door open to wholesale removal of the English law, including its checks and balances. In that year, amongst other things, several events occurred to make this transition, being the enactment of the Royal Styles and Title Act of 1973 to create title to displace the Crown, Queen that had been in effect for the previous 20 years. Next is the enactment of pretended law to remove reference of the Queen, Crown and the Commonwealth from the statutes of the previous 73 years as an intentional scrub to deny the Commonwealth Crown and Constitution. A most revealing notice that the era going forward from 1973 was not the Commonwealth came by the defacing of the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia and striking of the Great Seal of Australia, providing the display of a pretended authority that is not, or of, the Commonwealth, created out of thin air and hence no authority. The comedy of errors that began with the Federal Parliament's departure from the limits of constitutional law provided an immediate conflict with the Parliament of the States that remained under the Crown, and now we had two Queens that were supposedly distinct foreign to each other if you take the 2001 ruling of the High Court, Sue versus Hill, and you turn around and the 2002 ruling of the Federal Court of Appeal concerning the Deputy Commissioner of Taxation. For 13 years between 1973 and 1986, the Commonwealth and the state's jurisdiction were no longer acting in one dissolvable federal Commonwealth under the Crown of the United Kingdom. The Commonwealth Parliament and Government had left the states within that union, whilst having left for a jurisdiction of pretence that did not include the English common law. This circumstance supposedly allowed for the law that controlled the courts and judges, the Judiciary Act of 1903, to have a provision amended and remove the words "the common law of England" removed from section 80 and replace it with "the common law in Australia." The states maintained our heritage of English common law that included the Magna Carta, Petition of Right and the Bill of Rights, amongst other, for 13 more years while the Federal Parliament began its removal. Then in 1985, with the scheme of the Labor governments in all states and the Australia Act, came to be supposedly passed to sever the remaining ties of our Crown law protection. Section 109 of the Constitution does not allow for the states to sever the ties to the Crown, as the clauses are first tier of laws of the Commonwealth that may not be made inconsistent to when state make law. The statute in violating section 109 could not make the request of the Australia Act of 1986 in being valid law to remove the Crown, which in turn removes the Commonwealth. But here the Commonwealth is the right of all Australians, as the foundation law requires it. What has happened is that a pretended Australia without the Commonwealth and Crown has been foisted upon us, and the courts have been fooled by the counterfeit for which within there is no right. Over the recent years, there have been several court rulings on this pretended jurisdiction and Queen of Australia, where the case has been laid out, and the presumption against the Queen of Australia identified in the complete documentation to be used as evidence of fact and of presumption. What the judiciary have unwittingly done is trap themselves and reveal their fraud. You see, there is a rule of evidence that states of things that do not appear and of things that do not exist, the rule is the same. What I have here is some of the important manuals that I had whilst in Parliament, and they really go to the tools that are used for us to uphold the constitutional obligations as a federal senator. And I want to read a passage here out of a book which is called The Dictionary of English Law, and I take it from here. It states, "What is not in evidence is presumed to be non-existent. This maxim applies where a party seeks to rely upon any deeds or writings which are not produced in court, and the loss of which is not accounted for or supplied in the manner which the law prescribes, for in this case they should be treated as against such party as if non-existent. That which does not appear will not be presumed to exist." What does not appear on the judgments is the evidence of proof to overcome these two circumstances, one of fact of law and the other of presumption of fact. The proper application of the Queen of the United Kingdom, because of the second clause and the invalidity of the Royal Styles and Titles Act 1973, holding the Queen of Australia as a nullity, as the unable to provide the assent to bills and make law, must be held as true. The several judgments is evidence of the facts, because there is no evidence to prove the contrary and validate the Queen of Australia. The manual to the operation of the Commonwealth is the annotated notes of the Constitution by Quick and Garran, which I have here, a very fundamental tool as a federal senator, as equally so as the last manual I've just showed you. Now, I'll take you to page 795, which makes it very clear, and how a law may be regarded as Commonwealth law, and reads the following: "Every power alleged to be vested in the national government or any organ thereof must be affirmatively shown to have been granted. There is no presumption in favour of the existence of a power. On the contrary, the burden of proof lies on those who assert its existence, to point out something in the Constitution which either expressly or by necessary implication confers it, just as an agent claiming to act on behalf of his principal must make out by positive evidence that his principal gave him the authority he relies on. What the courts have engaged in is the ruse of the Australian people to remove the English common law and the rightful title of the Queen for application within the Commonwealth and our protection. With the support of our fellow Australians and the wisdom and resolve of our team, we will bring back this conspiracy to an end and restore the rule of the law for the Commonwealth. God save the Queen. Thank you for listening.